Okay, you can start.
Good evening, everyone. Today we would be discussing Chapter 8, Complex Organizations. This chapter would be presented by Timika Modest, Christian Powder, and myself, Kerry Bablal. And these are the topics that we'll be discussing in our presentation today. And the first one we'd want to discuss is what is an organization? Organizations are made up of multiple groups and teams with a goal of accomplishing a specific purpose. You, as students, see and experience numerous organizations every day. You may get up in the morning and see an email from the Division of Student Affairs or receive an invitation to a hike from Mr. Ian Carter Sr. Both are important student organizations. Or you may have visited some campus administrative office for advisement, or even had the frustrating experience of trying to work out your student affairs with BUSI or the admissions department. All these are part of an organization that we have to deal with. But the question to you, the audience, why do you think it's important that we learn to interact or work with an organization? Why do you think that's important? Well, I'll give you the answer. Learning to work successfully in an organization, it gains you a skill set you will use throughout your life. For example, teachers work in schools, engineers and lawyers, they work in firms, social workers operate in human service agencies and interact with the legal system. Accountants work in businesses, radiographers work in healthcare institutions. So no matter what our major is, we will encounter organizations on a regular basis. So that's why it's important that we learn to successfully work with them. So let's first discuss the difference between a group and an organization. With this table, Exhibit 8.1, it gives us a difference between groups and organization. So for example, who? Groups consist of a small to medium number of individuals, at least 3 participants, whereas an organization is much larger, typically consisting of 20 or more participants. What? Groups make up of individuals who interact with each other, whereas an organization consists of multiple groups that come together. When? Both groups and organizations involve continuous interactions among members. Where? Groups require close physical proximity among members, whereas organizations, their proximity is not important. Members can be physically close or far apart. How? Groups have simple structures, meaning fewer rules, hierarchies, or formalities, whereas organizations have complex structures with defined rules, policies, and hierarchies. Why? Both groups and organizations exist for a purpose, whether social, professional, or functional. So, in summary, based on this table, we see that a group is a smaller, informal collection of individuals who interact closely, whereas an organization is a large collection of groups of people that interact in a continuous manner within a structure to accomplish a specific purpose. So, organizations have many participants. We could think about ourselves when we were growing up and you played with your best friend. Sometimes you had problems or difficulties with each other, but that was easy to work out. As your friendship group expanded, however, things get more difficult. all of a sudden you realize that not everyone wanted to play the same game you did, or in fact, they wanted to play the game differently. Then your world expanded even further to your high school or places of employment. And um, so we can stop share for a second.
Yeah, you go ahead and organize.
Um,
Go ahead and try it back, Harry.
okay. Sorry about that. So, as I was mentioning before, your group became um, group became bigger. And so being associated with more people mean being exposed to different values, ideas, ways of doing things. And so again, apply that to an organization as a collection of groups of people. So imagine, for example, a college or university with student professors, administrators, alumni, parents, board of trustees, legislators, all of these groups working together to try and accomplish the same thing, educate students. No doubt that will be difficult to accomplish because each of these groups views the education of students in a different way. So therefore, the success of any organization, it depends on the groups within it staying connected so that they can work together easily and effectively. So if we try to formulate an answer, so why do organizations exist? The simple answer is they exist to accomplish a specific purpose. So what about organization now as complex systems? Well, organizations are also systems. A system is defined as an environment in which each interaction between members produces outcomes that affect each individual and subsequent interactions and outcomes. With more people in an organization, interactions become more frequent. And life within an organization becomes more complicated because everything affects everything else. And so in this diagram now, in Out of Control, Kevin Kelly introduces the 9 laws of God, which he describes as the organizing principle and system as diverse as biological evolution. These laws apply to organizations as systems. And so as we discuss these 9 laws, think about which one resonates with you, which one you have seen operate in your life or in your organization. So first we have distribute being. So that means the essence or identity of an organization is not connected in one place, but is spread across all its members. Every individual contributes to its overall functioning and culture. There is control from the bottom up. So organizations strive when power and decision making are distributed among members at all levels, rather than being controlled only from the top. There is cultivate increasing returns. Instead of trying to fix weaknesses, organizations should focus on strengthening what they already do well to amplify its success. There's grow by chunking. Growth happens in clusters or segments rather than one step at a time. Organizations expand through interconnected units rather than isolated changes. Maximize the fringes. Innovation often comes from unconventional or fringe ideas. Encouraging creativity and unconventional thinking can lead to breakthroughs. Honor your errors. Learning happens through trial and error. Mistakes should not be seen as failures, but as opportunities for growth and adaptation. Pursue no optima, have multiple goals. There is no single perfect solution to complex problems. Organizations should remain flexible and open to multiple solutions rather than seeking an ultimate optimal state. Seek persistent disequilibrium. This means that a degree of instability or change keeps an organization energized and adaptive. Too much stability can lead to stagnation, while controlled disruption fosters innovation. And finally, change changes itself, which means that change is a continuous process. One change leads to another, and organizations must embrace an evolving cycle of adaptation. And so the question again to the audience is, when we look at these principles, which one resonates with you? Which ones have you seen operate in your life or in your organization? Which one calls to you?
I'd say I think that honor your errors.
Mhm.
That would I think that would help a lot of employees who on a day-to-day basis try not to be perfectionists, but rather honor your errors because it's a way. But through errors, you learn and you grow and you develop. So I think I hope I answer your question.
Yeah, it did. Thanks very much for that. So now let's discuss organizational leadership. Why does leadership exist in an organization? Because organizations are widely considered to be structures in which a set of groups can engage with each other over time. Leadership in the organization now exists so that these groups could work together to accomplish a specific purpose. So leadership exists to help an organization accomplish its stated purpose. Now, the purpose may shift over time, but leadership must always honor its commitment to keep the organization on track to pursue its mission. So the relationship leadership model, this provides a usable framework from which leaders can work to accomplish an organization purpose. And here we see purpose at its core. So at the heart of the diagram is purpose, meaning that every organization, team, or initiative should have a clear and meaningful goal that drives its actions. And there are three key values now surrounding purpose. There's inclusive, so the organization should foster a culture where everyone is valued, heard, and involved in decision making. Empowering, it should create an environment where individuals feel capable, supported, and motivated to contribute. There's ethical, so all actions and decisions should be guided by moral principles, fairness, and integrity. And now the outside circle is process. So encompassing all these elements is process, which suggests that achieving purpose requires structured actions, strategies, and continuous efforts to maintain inclusivity, empowerment, and ethics. So this model shows that successful organizations or leadership systems, they must be inclusive, they must be empowering, They must be ethical, with a strong sense of purpose at their core, and all of this must be supported by effective processes. So we now like to hand you over to Mr. Christian Powder, and he will discuss now organizational structure.
Thank you, Gary. Organizational structure. If you can switch to the next slide, please. The next slide, please. Forms of organization structure define how tasks are distributed, coordinated, and monitored in a firm. In the lines of authority and responsibility, which a business is organized around, including its goals, policies, are called structures. For example, a functional structure collects employees by functioning of work, resulting in greater skill development as well as enhancing productivity. In contrast, a divisional structure organizes personnel around products or markets, which facilitates more effective responses to customers' needs. Selecting the appropriate structure plays a significant role in goal achievement and a company's adaptability to change market conditions. It is suggested that companies periodically review their structures so as to retain relevance and effectiveness in meeting challenges of the highly dynamic business environment. So as we can see from the four examples of business structures, we have the functional structures, divisional structures. If I can switch to the next slide. The strong matrix organizational structure and the flat organizational structure. The next slide, Carrie, please. For instance, a marketer would belong to a marketing department, which in turn belongs to the Department of Marketing, as facilitated by a functional structure. It enhances specialization as well as organizational efficiency. On the other hand, a divisional structure allows for the organization of teams by products or markets. This structure encourages flexible and responsiveness to customers' needs. The key point: organizations should analyze their strategic goals and operation requirements to choose a structure that is compatible with efficiency and flexibility. Periodic checks may assist in ensuring that the organizational structure is still relevant to the changes in the market conditions. The next slide. Organizational missions, values, and core values. So the mission, the reason for organization existence, what the vision is, what the organization hopes to achieve in the future. The core value, the fundamental guiding principles that adhere in the performance of an organization. Take an example: a tech company may have a core mission of innovating sustainable solution, envision becoming a leader in green technology globally, and have core values of integrity, collaboration, and sustainability. It is recommended that organizations communicate their mission, visions, values, and regularly, ensuring employees and market actions are integrated into its reality. Do so with employees in its process may strengthen understanding and commitment. No, you could go back to that slide. I have let's see. Each organization's mission statements define its reason to existence alongside the objective it hopes to accomplish. On the other hand, the vision statements captures the future which the organization hopes to build. Core values are guiding stars that help with decisions and culture of the organizations. All right, the next slide. Organizational culture. This captures a set of beliefs, values, and practices that are shared collectively by people that deeply influences their behavior at work. When culture is positive and constructive, it can significantly enhance employee engagement, promote creativity, and improve productivity in the workplace. A case in point is Google, where culture is both risk and team friendly. On the contrary, a deeply ingrained harmful culture can be toxic to employees, lower morale, affect productivity, and damage your company's reputation. These are steps that can be taken by leaders to create a positive culture by serving as role models, recognizing what their team brings to the table, and ensuring that there is communication to address cultural problems at hand. The next slide. Organizational networks. Organizational networks comprise both relationships within the organization and the outside organization. Such networks are vital because they help to facilitate the flow of information, cooperation, and exchange of resources that the organization needs for growth and innovation. For example, a firm may engage in the marketing of new products by taking advantage of technology or more advanced startups. Organizations that promote social collaboration can exploit the diversity of skills, knowledge, and experience more effectively. As organizations strive to meet the competitive challenges, these networks can be enhanced further by using technology to facilitate communication and connectivity. In conclusion, the organizational structure, along with missions, networks, culture, and their interrelationship as a whole, must be understood for effective functionality to occur between businesses, environment, and is volatile. Achieving the intended, innovative, agile organization culture is possible when all these components are aligned with strategic objectives and there's full employee engagement. Innovation needs powerful leadership, that is. And I may now pass you on to my colleague, Ms. Tamika Morris.
Thank you, Christian. So we will now discuss the life cycles of organizations. So we are all human beings, right? And organizations, just like us, go through life cycles. So we grow from a baby to a toddler to a teenager to adolescent, then to an adult, right? So in fact, the success of any organization would resolve around its ability to adapt to change. Next slide, Carrie. So let's define what is the organizational life cycle. This describes the stages of development of an organization through its life from early stages, including inception to organizational maturity. To the importance of adaptability. Managing changing conditions, changing partnerships, and leadership are key factors in adaptability. This skill to adapt ensures organizations can renew themselves and maintain their vibrancy. So as we could all see, this world is becoming more and more technologically advanced. Almost anything could be done through a click of a button, and now we have the introduction of AI, which makes it even more, great. But because of this, the life cycles shift so quickly that industries whose cycle once lasted a decade may now last a month. This just emphasizes the importance for businesses to take a proactive stance towards organizational life cycle changes to prevent organizational crisis and decline. So we have an example. Apple's shift from computers to mobile devices. So many technology companies adjust to fit into market trends. So in 2007, Apple introduced the first iPhone, which initiated their shift from a computer-centric company to a mobile-first one. We have the concept of lives of organizations, and John Gardner and Ishak Adaisis both expresses the evolution of organizations. So first we will go with Gardner's life cycles, and he explains his the evolution of organizations in two stages. So according to Gardner, organizations within an infancy stage are young, highly flexible, motivated, and could easily try new things, but they lack structure. As the organizations mature, flexibility may decline, they may require intentional renewal strategies. And in the text, it shows an example of Sergeant Shriver, which is the director of the Peace Corps. And he explained that the thrill of constantly doing different things is emphasized in the early stages of new organizations. So they barely had to make time to meet, but a lot of dedication was always there, and it comes to an end eventually. Then we have Ishak Adaisa's life cycle. So This was created in 1979 and advisors goes into more detail and uses the terms courtship, infancy, go-go, adolescence, prime, stable, aristocracy, early bureaucracy, and debt to describe a similar concept in 10 stages. So the first step is courtship. So this is the entrepreneurial phase where ideas and vision are developed. In infancy, this marks the launch of the organization, focusing on survival and rapid decision making. During go-go, rapid growth occurs, but there may be inefficiencies and lack of structure. Adolescence involves the rise of formal structures and processes, often causing conflicts internally. At its prime stage, the organization is at its peak, balancing flexibility and efficiency. Organizations must aim to prolong the prime stage as the next 5 stages lead to decline. Next slide. So as stability approaches, the organization's growth slows and risk-taking declines. In aristocracy, this leads to loss in market share as technology and market trends evolve despite the organization's success and presence. In early bureaucracy, the company may lose its purpose due to doubts, problems, and internal issues arising from the decline. During bureaucracy itself, the organization becomes resistant to change and is looking for an exit or disposal, or is basically prepared for somebody else to come in and take over. Lastly, without renewal, the organization will either close, sell off, go bankrupt, or they may sell its assets, resulting in debt. So despite the different number of stages in each model, there are elements in all of them that coincide with the 5 stages of the lives of living organizations. Now, the question was supposed to be if anybody could list the 5 stages, but it's already on the screen. So they are a birth event, that's the first one. Then we move to a growth stage, then a maturity stage, a decline stage, and lastly, the renewal stage. So what is the role of leadership in organizational growth? Generativity is defined as the ability and willingness to engage in acts that benefit younger generations in order to ensure the organization's long-term survival. And this could be any form of volunteering or mentoring. As such, leaders must identify, recruit, prepare, and mentor the future leaders of the organization. And this is one of the most critical and often overlooked responsibilities of leadership. Another action that helps maintain the vibrancy of organizations is self-assessment. So the organization must be able to ask themselves 2 questions on a regular basis. The first one is, what have we accomplished recently? And secondly, how do these achievements align with our mission? If at any point in time difficulties encountered when formulating an answer to either of those questions, then the organization may need to re-examine what they are doing and how they are going about doing it. So we have multicultural organizational development, or MCOD for short. Organizations must be willing to change to remain vibrant and successful for extended periods of time. The concept of multicultural organizational development can be used to transform organizations. So MCOD refers to the process in which an organization evolves from being monocultural or exclusive to multicultural, meaning inclusive, varied, or equitable, promoting full participation of all cultural and social groups and eliminating all forms of social oppression. The importance of MCOD could be seen, The importance of MCOD could be seen as it increases creativity and innovation. It creates inclusive environments, improves communication and language skills, increases productivity, encourages better understanding of different cultures. It improves company reputation. It enhances decision making. And lastly, it widens their customer base. So let's consider a real world example. We have a global tech company which may face challenges related to communication breakdowns, team conflicts, or unequal opportunities due to cultural differences among its employees. So based on this picture here, you could think of places like Amazon, Microsoft, Tesla. These are like big companies, right? So if the company does not take steps to ensure equal opportunity, people from different cultural backgrounds may not feel they have the same chance for advancement. Through MCOD, the company implements initiatives such as cross-cultural communication training, diversity, and inclusion workshops, and they can establish and employee resource groups that represent different cultural backgrounds. So by embracing MCOD, the company transforms from a potentially fragmented one to a more cohesive and high-performing one, leveraging the strengths of its diverse workforce. So let's consider this picture here. Right? This basically explains the developmental stage model. So we move from a monocultural to non-discrimination to a multicultural organization. So under monocultural, we have two stages. Stage one is exclusionary. And this basically shows that the group is intentional, but they still exclude certain groups. In stage two, we have club. So they maintain homogeneity and they allow limited inclusion. Under non-discrimination, there are also two stages, which is stage 3 and 4. At stage 3, we have compliance. So they adhere to legal requirements, but not fully embracing diversity. At stage 4, there's affirmative action. So they proactively recruit diverse members, but potentially lack integration. At stage 5 and 6, which is under multicultural organization, we have redefining first. So they are committed to redesigning and implementing policies and practices to ensure inclusion, participation, and empowerment of all their members. And lastly, at stage 6, they integrate diversity throughout the organization, which means they are multicultural. Positive change within an organization, particularly in relation to cultural diversity and inclusion. So let's consider Exhibit 8.3. According to Jackson and Holdino, 1988, those who come from a monocultural perspective view society as harmonious and fair. Those having a non-discriminatory perspective view society as mostly functional, yet it has flaws. And lastly, those with a multicultural perspective view society as having deep-rooted inequalities, which require immediate change. Next slide. Learning organizations. A learning organization is one that is always evolving by obtaining and using information in order to adapt to a changing environment. This notion was proposed by Peter Senge, 1990, Watkins, and Masick, and others, who emphasized the importance of continual learning among individuals and teams in order for organizations to remain competitive and innovative. This strategy is especially applicable in today's dynamic business scene, where rapid technological breakthroughs and global problems necessitate companies' agility and adaptability. Sanj gave us 5 disciplines of learning organizations. In his conceptualization of the learning organization, he identified these 5 key disciplines that characterize a learning organization. and each discipline contributes to the organization's ability to learn and grow. So firstly, we have personal mastery, and at this stage, individuals strive for excellence in their skills and knowledge. They commit to lifelong learning and personal growth. For example, a software developer might consistently choose to learn a new programming language or different methods to stay current in their field. Secondly, we have mental modes. Mental modes are deep-seated assumptions that influence decision-making. They can be empowering for an entire organization. Another example is a marketing team questioning the assumption that younger consumers only respond to social media ads, leading to a more comprehensive campaign that includes various medias. Third, we have shared vision. A shared vision aligns organizational goals with individual aspirations, and it prevents haphazard movements. Plus, it builds commitment and amplifies motivation. Fourth, there's team learning. So it fosters collaboration and dialogue within teams, enabling them to learn and innovate together. It encourages learning from successes and failures, and it considers leadership as an ongoing process rather than an end result. So we have NASA, for example. It doesn't matter how many times they send a rocket up in space, whether it reaches the space or it explodes in the atmosphere, they get to learn more about space exploration each time. Lastly, systems thinking. These organizations are seen as complex systems of interconnected parts, understanding how changes in one area will affect the other. They cultivate a culture of personal responsibility where individuals actively seek to identify their contributions to problems rather than shifting blame. When people think systematically, they share responsibility for the good and bad things that are happening. Virtuality and the impact of technology. Charles Handy describes virtual organizations and entities that function without requiring a centralized physical location for their workforce. They operate as interconnected networks rather than traditional office spaces. So this became very popular during COVID-19. Most of y'all know people couldn't really go out to open their businesses. So we started a lot of online using, online platforms, Zoom, Teams, whatnot, to get things done. So some of the features of virtual organizations are high reliance on trust, shared purpose and values, reduced hierarchy and flatter structures, and greater participation in decision making. Now, what makes a virtual leader? Within virtual environments, leadership is described by Avolio and Kahai as follows. Effective virtual leadership hinges on building strong relationships despite the challenges of remote communication. Leadership dynamics are evolving. Excuse me. So there's a greater information access for both leaders and followers, leading to empowerment. Leadership responsibilities are decentralizing, moving to lower organizational levels, and the leadership functions within and creates interconnected networks. Some of the attributes of a leader: they are expected to embrace complexity, ambiguity, and uncertainty. They must demonstrate insatiable curiosity and commitment to lifelong learning. Courage is also rooted in strong values and beliefs and must be exhibited, as well as a deep focus on building and retaining talented individuals. Leaderships or virtual leaders also have a role. So they are expected to enhance team cohesion, nurture and maintain trust, promote information and idea sharing, moderate and resolve team conflict, facilitate team coordination and integration, develop social and human capital within the team. So let's consider a little case study. Do you think your organization operates virtually with members coming and going at all different hours of the day or night and spending very little time together in the same place? Anybody can answer this question. Anybody think you was in any virtual organizations?
No, I can say my organization does not fit in this.
Okay. Well,
Same here. But
if you
during
think about
COVID,
this,
we did.
go ahead.
Sorry.
You can go
Yeah.
ahead.
My organization doesn't fit into this, but we did adapt a sort of virtual style during COVID. But we reverted, so.
Okay. Well, if you think about it, COSTAT is like a virtual organization. And different students on different campuses or even different departments will interact with one another. So somebody from City Gates, somebody from Shagonas could be doing the same course, but we don't actually meet in one place, right? And even for this assignment, many of us did not actually meet to get it done. We communicated at any hour, any day, or night during social media, and we still were able to get tremendous amounts of work done, right? So the impact and future of technology on organizations. The use of technology encourages many questions. What will it mean for organizations in the future? Does more communication always make better organizations? Or at what point does having access to all this information become overwhelming? Well, at this point, the answers to these questions are uncertain, but changes are inevitable. Some trends to look forward to are AI-driven decision-making, metaverse and virtual reality, workplaces, decentralized autonomous organizations or DAOs, and heightened focus on cybersecurity and data privacy. New paradigm leadership in conventional paradigm cultures. So in today's business environment, many leaders are inspired by new leadership models but struggle to implement them in conventional cultures. This creates a conflict where innovative ideas meet traditional resistance. However, there are effective strategies for navigating this challenge. Some of the challenges that may be embraced in a new paradigm leadership are conflict between innovative leadership principles and traditional corporate culture. And then there's resistance from colleagues and supervisors. Excuse me. Leaderships must navigate structures and colleague, leaders must navigate hierarchy structures and colleague opposition to implement change effectively. Some of the actions we could use to overcome these challenges are to share knowledge. So we could engage leaders, colleagues, and advisors in discussions. Take personal responsibility by implementing changes within our sphere of influence. We can maintain a positive outlook by focusing on opportunities rather than barriers. We can experiment in small ways. We can apply concepts gradually within an allowed boundary. Engage in external opportunities by volunteering, speaking, or teaching outside of the organization. And commit to lifelong learning by building a personal leadership library for continuous growth. In conclusion, organizations are essentially social entities comprising large groups that continuously interact within a complex structure to achieve a specific purpose. Interactions within these organizations are intricate, with each member's interactions and outcomes affecting others, highlighting the systematic nature of an organization. These systems function according to organizing principles that govern various complex systems, demonstrating the interconnectedness and dynamic qualities of organizational life. Navigating and leading within these complex systems can be challenging, but they offer great potential due to the diversity and talent of their members. These are our references, and I thank you for listening to our presentation. Any questions or comments?